All right, many thanks to our friends on the 5. Welcome to Hannity. This is a Fox News alert. Breaking news, a stunning new report from the Hill tonight. It ties Democrats and Republicans to the very same lobbyists who met with Donald Trump Jr. John Sununu, Greg Jarrett, Jay Sekulow, Larry Elder, Ari Fleischer, Patrick J. Buchanan, and Dr. Sebastian Gorka, all here on this busy Friday breaking news edition of Hannity. Also, a Hannity investigation into what is real collusion between Democrats and the media that they're not telling you about. That is tonight's very important opening monologue. All right, there are several reports tonight that increased the number of people who attended the meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had with this Russian lawyer in 2016, including a Russia lobbyist. And by the way, some outlets are reporting the man has ties to Russian intelligence, although he denies it. Now, this comes as the Hill is breaking another major story tonight about who Donald Trump Jr. met with and how they're tied to the Democrats. That's right, the Democrats. According to the Hill, this Russian lobbying effort has ties to 3 Russian businessmen, and the lobbying team included a former Democratic congressman and a former government official. Now, the report also details how these pro-Russian lobbyists, including one of the people who met with Donald Trump Jr., also tried to meet with Democrat and Republican members of Congress. So, in other words, a lot of people involved in this. And we're also learning tonight that back in March, Senator Chuck Grassley, he published a complaint where he detailed how a Russian lobbyist in this story worked with that group we've been telling you about, Fusion GPS. Remember, they published the fake document about President Trump, and that goes to the Ritz-Carlton, and that goes to hookers. Remember all that? But they were there to lobby Congress on one that matters. There's also new information on how several Obama administration agencies allowed this Russian lawyer to enter the U.S. back in 2015 and stay until through her June 9th meeting with Donald Trump Jr. So it sounds like John Kerry, Loretta Lynch, and Jay Johnson all have a lot of explaining to do tonight. Because after all, if this Russian lawyer was such a threat, like the left and the media is claiming, well, then why was she allowed into the country? Why did she get a special waiver and allowed to stay? Once again, as we begin to peel back the layers of this onion and learn more and more about truth and facts, this is now boomeranging back onto the Democratic Party. Revelation about the Clintons, their financial ties to Russia, and more potential evidence of a major pay-to-play scheme with millions of dollars. Now, in a WikiLeaks email allegedly from the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta, his inbox, a staffer actually bragged about stopping a story that tied Clinton to the Magnitsky Act. And it reads in part, quote, with the help of the research team, we killed a Bloomberg story trying to link Hillary Rodham Clinton's opposition to the Magnitsky Act and the bill to a $500,000 speech that William Jefferson Clinton gave in Moscow. By the way, double his normal speaking fee. Now, the campaign was able to kill that story, but the Wall Street Journal reported that back in 2010, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and opposed this particular act, well, quote, Bill Clinton participated in a question and answer session at a Renaissance Capital Investors Conference where he was paid $500,000. And after the appearance, Mr. Clinton received a personal thank you call. From who? Vladimir Putin, then the Russian Prime Minister. The government news agency TASS reported that. And in that same article, a Clinton spokesman, well, did push back against that connection. But this isn't the only evidence of pay-to-play and wrongdoing from the Clintons that they have gotten a pass on. We're going to expose that in a second. But first, the Democrats, the Destroy Trump media, have for months breathlessly, hysterically been feigning moral outrage and pushing those black helicopter tinfoil hat conspiracy theories about collusion, when in fact they now are the ones. They have been colluding the entire time, all in an effort to damage, to delegitimize, and ultimately overturn an election of you, the American people, and destroy the president. Let's go back to the campaign. Remember WikiLeaks? They exposed this unholy alliance between the Clinton campaign and the press. There was a highly orchestrated plot between the Clinton campaign, the media. Why? They wanted Hillary elected. Now, the evidence is overwhelming. It's incontrovertible, including, remember CNN? Oh, yes, fake news. Well, remember they gave the Clinton team debate questions ahead of time. And by the way, does anyone ever remember that poor Bernie Sanders was railroaded and the fix was in and it was a rigged primary? Now, by the way, this is why that Clinton was given a free pass by the media despite a mountain of evidence of felonies, crimes, wrongdoing, inexcusable behavior. And it's why now the media refuses to even cover massive scandals that you, the American people, need to know about. They don't care to search for answers. They're not looking for the truth. They have political, ideological interests. And, of course, that's advancing that radical all-left-wing agenda and, of course, hurting President Trump. Now, just take a look at this disgusting display from Democrats. This is just earlier today. Some of them, and they've been doing this since November 9th, talking about the president and impeachment. Watch this.
So many of us are attempting in every way that we possibly can to unveil the criminal activity, the unconstitutional activity of this president and his family. So I have dubbed them the criminal Klan a long time ago.
I've always been reluctant because I think impeachment is something that really has an impact on the country. So when the facts are clear, the law is certainly clear. When the facts are clear, then this Congress will make a decision.
Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Democrats, once again, calling for impeachment, it doesn't matter what does or doesn't happen. This has been their goal for a very long time. All these cries, impeachment, impeachment, all the hysteria, all the conspiracy theories, it's really about distracting you, the American people, from real scandals that they're not reporting on, that we're investigating. And, of course, we will continue to investigate. We will continue to expose them because you deserve answers, the truth, and people need to be held responsible for their actions. For example, back in January, we've been telling you, Politico uncovered a massive, huge scandal, much bigger than Trump-Russia. Here's the headline. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump. Oh, a foreign government backfire. Kiev officials scrambling to make amends with the president-elect after quietly working to boost Clinton. Now, that story, as we've been telling you, it details how a DNC paid operative, Alexandra Chalupa, she literally spearheaded a plan along with the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian ambassador, to hurt Donald Trump's campaign and boost Hillary Clinton. And Politico highlights in the piece how Chalupa once worked for the Clinton White House, worked to try to expose former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and they were successful, including meeting with the Ukrainian diplomats in the Ukrainian embassy. And Chalupa said that those Ukrainian diplomats were helpful when it came to finding information. They were researching it, disseminating that information. And the bombshell quote about Chalupa, well, she shared her findings with officials from the DNC and Clinton's campaign. Oh, that's called collusion. But Chalupa's efforts didn't end there. Remember, she also said that she would help, quote, a lot of journalists, their willing accomplices in the media, in writing stories about Manafort to try to hurt the Trump campaign. Now, we've reached out again to Chalupa. We haven't heard back. Shocking. Now, as we said last night on the program, she needs to be called in by the Republicans. They have the power to do this. Put her under oath. Make her testify to Congress. What did she know? When did she know it? How did she get this information? Who did she share the information with? And Congress also needs to hear from the Ukrainian ambassador she was meeting. Remember, they sat down in the embassy, and we can't stop there. The ENC, they were briefed. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she needs to be put under oath and tell you, the American people, what she knows about this scandal. And on top of that, if they brief the campaign, which the report says they did, all right, bring in John Podesta, put him under oath. He needs to testify about the information Chalupa passed on to the campaign. Robbie Mook as well. Now, this is a major scandal, but only the tip of the iceberg of what needs to be investigated. We still have the Russian dossier. Remember Christopher Steele? That's the former intelligence agent, Great Britain. He wrote that fake news dossier about Donald Trump, and by the way, paid for some of the information. It cited Russian sources, and then the group connected to Hillary, that's Fusion GPS. Remember, they were sending it around, and the Democrats, they were using that phony information to attack then candidate, now President Trump. They all need to be brought before Congress under oath and answer questions. Then, of course, we got the former FBI director, Comey. He wanted to pay this guy $50 50 grand, and his removal of government information from the FBI, leaking it to the New York Times, and helping to get his friend to be a special counsel. Let's put him under oath in this. The special counsel ended up becoming Comey's buddy, Robert Mueller. Oh, okay. Then he hires Hillary Clinton's attorney. We've been saying this over and over again. It is now time to start investigating the investigator, but in mainstream media. Now, Mueller may be actually breaking out the law by carrying out this investigation when it's James Comey, his BFF, is the key witness. And Mueller's hiring, let's see, members to his team, donating thousands and thousands to Obama and Clinton. Take a look at the graphic. His investigators have donated tens and tens of thousands of dollars to the likes of Hillary and Obama. And what's even worse is one of the lawyers of Mueller's team, well, he was working for Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And we've also learned that the former Obama Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, influenced the investigation into the email server scandal, pressuring James Comey to call it a matter instead of an investigation. Then, of course, the 40-minute tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton. When are we going to put these people under oath? It's got to happen sooner than later. And by the way, go to all of this. It includes, reopening. This is the most important part. If we're going to have equal justice under the law, reopen Hillary Clinton's email investigation, since we know, well, that in that particular case, Lynch influenced that investigation. Only a matter? Not really. There's also Hillary breaking the law, having secret, top secret, special access program, classified information on her server. That's mishandling by definition. And then destroying some. Then the corrupt Uranium One deal. Remember, she was serving as Secretary of State, approved the transfer of up to 20%. America's uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons, a real Russian conspiracy. That goes to Vladimir Putin. That goes to the Russians. And people involved in that deal kicked back as much as $145 million into the Clinton Foundation. That's called bribery where I grew up. And while Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees in Moscow. Nobody else is telling you this. It's outrageous, the double standard. It is beyond anything I've seen in my lifetime. Joining us now.
The election of Hillary Clinton would lead, in my opinion, to the almost total destruction of our country as we know it. She would be the most dishonest and the most corrupt person ever elected to high office. Americans have had it with the years and decades of Clinton corruption. It's corruption. Crooked Hillary wants to end forever the American independence that our founders gave us. Our great founders are spinning in their graves. Our founders are spinning in their graves.
Donald Trump earlier today back on the campaign trail at a huge, massive rally in Florida. Also tonight, WikiLeaks released an email from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. Look at this subject line: needy Latinos and one easy call. Wow. Joining us now is reaction from the Trump Organization, Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. How are you?
Hey,
good to
Sean.
see you.
How are you?
I saw you had tweeted that out earlier today, so obviously you're paying attention to this. Imagine your father talked about needy Latinos.
When does it end? First it's deplorables, then it's irredeemables. It was super predators
Rednecks.
Before then. Today it was rednecks. Now we're talking about Christians, evangelicals were getting killed earlier today by these emails. Now it's needy Latinos. It is, and they talk about us being the party of bigotry and the party of hate. And it's not until Julian Assange comes along and obviously releases these emails via WikiLeaks.
The real Democrat. Remember the original release on the DNC? What did it show? It showed racism, sexism, misogyny, anti-Semitic language in there. And that's the very arguments they make against Republicans every 4 years. That's them.
Look what else it showed. It showed corruption in Haiti. It showed that Donna Brazile was giving Hillary questions, ahead of time for these debates. I mean,
conspiring against Bernie.
It truly shows the true level of corruption in our government. I mean, and in the Democratic Party. I mean, it's actually very, very scary. And this is serious stuff. And it's actually a real shame that most of the mainstream media isn't paying more attention to it. You do. But most of the mainstream media isn't paying attention to this because this undermines democracy. It undermines the way of our life.
Eric, I have been brutalized by the mainstream media.
I know.
I'm a commentator.
I know.
I say I'm a conservative. I'm open. I'm supporting your dad for president. I'll proudly pull the lever for him. But NBC, CNBC, Univision, CNN, MSNBC fed questions to Hillary. The New York Times, Boston Globe, Washington Post. They're colluding with the campaign. And they're going to criticize me, and I'm honest?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got corruption in the Republican establishment, the Democratic establishment, the media establishment. Your dad's up against a lot of establishment.
And by the way, this is corruption of the worst form. And this is corruption that cost this country trillions of dollars. This is corruption that's cost this country lives. This is corruption that compromises national security. I mean, this is real stuff. I mean, this is real stuff. This is actions. This isn't words. And people have to be held accountable. This is the commander-in-chief of the free world. How do you hold them accountable but to elect your dad? Well, you know, when you look at the interesting little complicated webs, right, where you have, you know, the sons and daughters of major, you know, the CEOs of these major news networks, and they're working at the Clinton Foundation. You have all these little intricate webs. It's difficult, and they sow these ties for this purpose. They do it for their own political gain.
And here's what's happened in the meantime, the stats I give out on the economy.
Sure.
Okay, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, 95 million Americans out of the labor force, worst recovery since the 40s, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, 1 in 5 American families, not one person in that family working, and we've doubled the debt.
Sure. And they don't want to report that. And they don't want to report that.
I say it every night.
How about the scariest thing? The fact that median incomes in this country haven't gone up in 15 years. Median incomes haven't gone up. And actually, Sean, they've gone down because if you think about it, all of our expenses are higher, right? Our taxes are higher. Our utilities are higher. Health care, Obamacare is a disaster.
Obamacare is up $4,100 per family.
And
since
think
he's
about
been president.
that. So if you have median incomes, if people haven't gotten a raise in this nation in 15 years, and all of your expenses are higher, it's no wonder why people are working 2 and 3 jobs just to try and get back.
You know that there was a stat that came out the other day, 1 in 7 Americans don't have $1,000 in savings. They're 2 paychecks away from being one of the 13 million Americans on food stamps.
Yeah, and we have $20 trillion worth of national debt, which is going up exponentially. We've got $1.4 trillion in student debt. I mean, it's really incredible.
How does the country absorb all of this in 27 days?
No, listen, I think we've started an amazing movement. My father started an amazing movement. I mean, I've been in every single state. I just got back from Colorado yesterday. I had an amazing couple of days there. I was in Maine. I was in New Hampshire. I was in everywhere. There's a movement out there, Sean. People get it. People want...
You can see the crowds.
People want this country...
Enthusiasm.
People want this country back. They're sick of corrupt politicians, and that's what we have in Washington, D.C. You see these closed-door deals. Look at this Russian uranium deal, where Hillary approves 20% of the United States uranium going to Russia. I mean, this is the material used to make nuclear weapons. And then the Clinton Foundation gets $145 million for it. I mean, talk about compromising national security. It's scary stuff.
When you think of Hillary saying these 2 things, you need a public and private position, and she doesn't like the everyday Americans.
It's amazing.
That, to me, says everything you would need to never get elected.
Well, then she also says, listen, I'll be the hardest person in the world on Wall Street. But then she goes to Wall Street and says, you'd be the perfect people to solve Wall Street's problems.
But they paid her $225,000 for that speech.
It's amazing. And by the way, when you're an employee of the government, when you're Secretary of State, shouldn't you be working on behalf of the people of this country as opposed to giving paid speeches? You know, if you're giving hour-long paid speeches, you need to prepare, you need to travel, you need to do everything else. I mean, don't you think that's a distraction toward your job?
How about 55% of the people that got to see her as Secretary of State were donors to the foundation?
I know.
That's called pay to play.
Yeah.
And then the Hannity Foundation you talked about, they literally separated a list for donors so they could capitalize on the rebuilding of Haiti.
Listen, I ask a question every single day. They came out of the White House and they claimed, Bill and Hillary, they claimed they were quote-unquote dead broke. Now they're worth $250 million. And the question I always ask was, what product did they sell? How did they go from zero to $250 million? What product did they sell?
Nothing.
And by the way, when you ask that question, I think a lot of people understand what was really happening there, and it's very, very sad.
Eric, good to...